Hey, what's up, guys? It's Ronaldo here. So, I did a little bit of digging and I spoke to a bunch of very intelligent people, and they told me that there's another avenue that the NPA could follow if they want to remove the bail conditions for Julius Malema and potentially go to jail immediately because of a pattern that has been forming here. Now, we all know that Julius Malema was handed down a 5-year sentence for discharging a firearm in a public space. What we also know is that the NPA came out and condemned what he said after the sentencing outside the court. Now, we know that after the verdict, when he was found guilty, he had some terrible things to say about the judge, called her a racist. He had terrible things to say about the justice system. And then after the sentencing, he also had terrible things to say about the magistrate, about the justice system, and some would argue that he even threatened the state prosecutor. So much so that the NPA released a statement on it, meaning that that avenue is open, and that was what the video yesterday focused on. But there is another avenue in which the NPA, if they actually wanted to act like they did against Penny Sparrow and against Vicky Momberg, which led to successful prosecutions of those people with direct prison sentences, the same could happen to Julius Malema if the NPA just decided to actually prosecute him. Now, what am I talking about? Well, before I get into it, please be sure to subscribe to this channel. It's absolutely free, it won't cost you anything, and the overwhelming majority of you aren't subscribed, but you can fix that by just clicking the subscribe button below, and it'll be greatly appreciated. Alright, so I'm going to take you back to 2022, in which after the Brackenfell incident happened between the EFF and some bystanders there, Julius Malema then came and spoke at a EFF event, and he said the following.
Why are the victims of racism not attracted to you? Do you exist in paper, or do you exist amongst our people? And do you help these victims of racism to confront racism and nip it on the bud and make sure that racism is confronted here in the Western Cape? You went to a school here to protest the other time, and you were beaten by white people. And there is a white man who's visible on camera. If I were to ask you, what have you done in terms of follow-up after being beaten by that white guy? Why have you not, as a revolutionary organization, followed up on that guy?
It's important to note here that he is specifically talking about an individual that everybody is aware of. Because it's important to note, when it comes to equality courts, rulings on hate speech, there's not a direct prison sentence involved. It's not a criminal case because it's not directed at somebody specific. You know, when you say terrible things and it's not aimed at anybody specific, then it isn't criminal, according to the Equality Court. So here, however, the difference is that he is speaking specifically about one or two individuals, as he has stated here, and you can listen to it now, in which he goes into more detail.
Him alone, to check that guy in an isolated space and attend to the guy properly. What type of revolutionaries get beaten and they don't have a follow-up? And then they pride themselves of being beaten, and they repeat videos of themselves being beaten, and we must vote for them because they were beaten by a white man that they've never followed up on the same white man that has beaten them up. Tell that white man to try me. I'll come many times here in Western Cape appearing a court case, because no white man is going to beat me up and call myself a revolutionary the following day.
What's important here is he's still talking about that specific white man that everybody in that crowd and everybody else knows about because it was mainstream media news. But what he says now goes further than just hate speech.
You must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act.
So there you heard it. He was talking about one specific individual, and then the conversation led from that into killing people. That is direct incitement to violence, because he's pointed out the one individual that he's talking about, he has framed it, and he has instructed people. That is incitement to imminent violence right there. And if you don't believe me, then let's look at the court case, because remember, this was taken to the Equality Court. Now, the Equality Court can't deal with criminal convictions. They can only say that it's hate speech and then give punitive sentences of money or rehabilitation or an apology. They can't actually deal with convictions of criminality. So they found him guilty of hate speech. It was the South African Human Rights Commission and another that took this matter on. And in 2025, I think it was August last year, he was found guilty of hate speech. But then the judge in the court order had the following to say. Now, just so you can see, this is the Equality Court ruling. Case number 16-2022 and 17-2022, and it's the South African Human Rights Commission and Dante van Wyk and Julius Malema and the Economic Freedom Fighters. Judgment delivered via email on the 27th of August 2025. So I just want to take you to paragraph 94. Now, if you read this, you can see that there's an opportunity here for the NPA. It says, it commenced with a reminder that the incident was the one where members of the organization were beaten by white people and nothing had been done to exact retribution for this. It pointed out that there was a white man visible on a video of the event who had not been followed up on by being taken to an isolated space to be attended to properly. Those listening were derided for calling themselves revolutionaries, as they had allowed themselves to be beaten by a white man who they had never followed up on, or the same white man that had beaten them up. The first respondent was thus indicating that the white men, by the way, Julius Malema is the first respondent and the EFF is the second respondent, just for the future of this discussion here, indicating that the white men who had beaten EFF members in the assault should be the object of the retribution. The listeners were then told that they should never be scared to kill, as they were engaged in a revolution, and in a revolution demanded that at some point there should be killing, because killing was part of the act of revolution. The reference to killing was clearly reference to those who had beaten them up. Thus, those listening to the speech were told who the targets of the retribution which was to be exacted were, how they were to be identified, and what form the retribution should take, i.e. that they should be killed. They were reassured by being reminded that at some point Nelson Mandela, a revered national leader, had taken up a gun because the revolution had reached a point where there was no longer an alternative but to kill. They were told not to be scared to kill, and that anything which stood in the way of the revolution was to be eliminated. Thus, they were being told that now was the time for killing. They were reassured that they were not being asked to do anything which the speaker, their leader, had not done when he had reacted to a racist act at the funeral of Winnie Madikizela Mandela, the former wife of Mr. Mandela. They were reminded that the organization Founding Manifesto proclaimed that it will take power by all means necessary, and therefore, when confronted by such a situation, members should never think twice, as cowards are not for the revolution. It should be known that the organization was not a playground for racists, and that if any racist plays next to it and threatens and beats up its membership and leadership, this would constitute an application to meet your maker with immediate effect. This message that was being conveyed in the passage in the context of what preceded it was that when members of the organization were confronted by an act of racist violence in the future, they were to respond to it with the ultimate response, the killing of those responsible. They were adjured again to follow up on the racist who had beaten them, as racism was violence and violence could only be ended by violence, not any other necessary means. A racist was a violent person and should therefore be treated as such. Once again, they were clearly being told that violent retribution should be exacted for what had been done to them. This was no figure of speech, but a clear instruction. The offending portion ended with the declaration that the organization was in a metaphorical war between white supremacy and black consciousness, and when a white supremacist raised their ugly head, members ought to stand up and say that this would not be tolerated, as they would not accept dominance by the white race over the black race, and the Western Cape should be at the center of the confrontation of white supremacy, as racism was rife in the province. To argue as Prof. Friedman does that as the offending portion of the speech targeted persons for what they had allegedly done in the past or might do in the future as opposed to who they were, it therefore could not be hate speech is facile. To enlist the support of a mob and incite it to commit acts of violence, victims of hate speech are routinely accused of all manner of repugnant behavior by those who vilify them. One only needs to recall what Jews, Muslims, and Tutsis were accused of doing so that hatred and genocide could be fomented against them. Now, the judge makes it very clear and actually hands this case on a silver platter to the NPA to say, although I can only deal with matters within the Equality Court's jurisdiction, this is something that could be taken on criminally in another court. And the one thing that they keep on saying is that this could be incitement to commit murder, which is a criminal offense. And then there's also incitement to cause public violence or even criminal injuria. So there are three opportunities here for the NPA to immediately open a case against him and prosecute him for this, because he pointed out who the individual was, what happened, and what should be done to him. That is incitement to imminent violence. That is incitement to commit murder. And if not that severe, which I think it is, I mean, it's his words coming out of his mouth, just like him discharging a firearm publicly, you could at least argue that this is criminal injuria or, incitement for public violence. So why has the NPA not acted on this since 2025? When this judgment came out, and especially seeing what the judge said themselves, in the sense that I can't deal with this matter further than just to, deal with it within the framework of the Equality Court, which he did, or she did. I'm not too sure if the judge is male or female. But ultimately, he was found guilty of hate speech. Now, it's also important to note that if the NPA does decide to prosecute him criminally for this, then this is a potential Schedule 5 or Schedule 6 offense, which, unlike his previous case where the state had to prove that he should not be granted bail, now it turns around and him and his attorneys should prove why he should get bail. And if the NPA decided to criminally charge him for this, then considering the guilty finding of the previous case, the utterings of him threatening the NPA prosecutor, threatening the judge, insulting the judge, attacking the criminal justice system, it is very clear that he will not get bail if the NPA just decides to do their job and take this on criminally. Because it's a video and it's evidence of him uttering things and instructing people what to do. So I think that this case if they had to decide to pick it up, is in actual fact stronger than what I mentioned yesterday, which, by the way, if you haven't watched the video, you can go and watch it over here. You can pause this video, go and watch that, and then come back to this. But I would say that this case right here, the fact that he was found guilty of hate speech and that the NPA didn't think that they should criminally prosecute him for what he said, even though it is very obvious that it is incitement to commit murder, or at least, the very least, crimen injuria, or incitement for public violence, because he's asking people to do something specifically to specific people. It is an open and shut case. And now the question needs to be asked, why is the NPA not doing something about this? Is it once again time for AfriForum to step in and force the NPA to take this further? Because this is a slam dunk case. The evidence is there. You don't have to do a lot. And because it's so severe, and because he's asked people to commit murder, I would even argue that this would lead to a longer jail sentence than the 5 years that he got for discharging a firearm in a public space. So I think it's time that we contact AfriForum and we contact the NPA and ask them, guys, this is here on a silver platter. And the judge, when they read out the judgment, they made it very clear that there's a real possibility that if you decide to prosecute him criminally for this, that he will be found guilty. And also because we know for the next few years, the bail application is going to take 2 to 3 years. You can deal with this matter decisively, considering that he is publicly going on and attacking the justice system, state prosecutors, and the judges and magistrates. Perhaps you can silence him by just dealing with things that he said previously. So once again, I think all the chickens are coming home to roost at the same time. It's just whether the NPA has the stomach to do what they did to Penny Sparrow and also to Vicky Momberg. If it's good for the one, it's surely good for the other. So NPA, the ball is in your court and we are waiting. And that's pretty much all I got to say. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please be sure to subscribe to this channel. Please be sure to share this video far and wide. Don't forget to smash the like button. If you'd like to support this channel financially, you can give us super thanks by clicking on the $ below and choosing an amount. And thank you for that. Or you can become a member to this channel by clicking the join button below. And that comes with its own perks. And you can view that by clicking the join button. And that's pretty much all I got to say, everybody. Till later. Cheers and peace out.
You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say I went my massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say I went my massacre. My massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say I went my massacre.